Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the Great British Mickey Waffle. I'm Ben and I'm joined by fellow wafflers Becca.
Hello.
John.
Hiya.
Claire.
Hi.
And Lloyd.
Hello.
How are you all doing today, guys?
Not bad. Same old same.
Yeah, we're alright.
Yeah, good stuff.
So we have a very special guest joining us today. He's the host and creator of podcast WDW Radio, Lou Mongello. Hello, Lou. How are you today?
Hello, everybody. I feel out of place. I'm the only one without a really cool accent, so...
To us, you've got, like, the greatest accent.
I was going to say, to us, you've got the cool accent and we all sound boring.
Let's start with our quick fire round Carousel of Questions. So, Lou, are you ready?
I'm nervous now.
I'll start with the first one. What's your favourite park?
Magic Kingdom.
What's a ride that you hate?
Oh, I don't hate anything. A ride that I maybe don't love a lot. I'm talking slowly to try and think about it. I don't know. Gosh, a ride that I don't love a lot is Astro Orbiter.
Good choice.
Never done that.
And what's your most overrated snack?
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna. Oh God, if I say this, every one of your listeners and probably the entire country of England's gonna get mad at me. I'm not a huge fan of like the Mickey ice cream bars. I'm not a big ice cream guy, so.
I don't think you're alone with that, Lou.
No. Which is your favourite transportation mode in Walt Disney World?
Oh, I'm a sucker for the monorail. I have just a sentimental spot in my little heart for the monorail.
Favorite table service restaurant at Walt Disney World?
The Boathouse and the Boathouse.
How do we know you're going to say that?
So your top three is Boathouse, Boathouse, the Boathouse.
Followed very closely by Takumi Tay. I'll sneak that one in there too.
The resort you haven't stayed at, but want to more than anything else on Earth.
Shades of Green is the only one I've never stayed at.
Favourite car park?
Favorite what?
Wow.
Favourite car park?
Favorite car park?
You might know it more as a parking lot.
I was like, I think that's what she means, and I'm not really sure. Gosh, I was going to say Epcot, but it's huge. You know what? I think I'm going to say Hollywood Studios almost by default because the Skyliner is there, and it's a really short walk usually to the front gate. I was going to Google car park while we were talking. I'm like, I feel so stupid.
Typhoon, Blizzard Beach, or Volcano Bay?
I don't even know what that last one is. No, I'm going to say Typhoon Lagoon.
Next question. Galaxy's Edge or Diagon Alley?
I'm going to say Galaxy's Edge.
Early morning or late night park visit?
Yes.
From beginning to end.
Yeah, it's both, but yeah, let's go early morning and rope drop it.
Keep the magic or backstage detail?
Oh, great question. Backstage detail.
Favourite other podcast or vlogger about Disney?
The Great British Mickey Waffle, obviously.
Good answer.
And the last one. I think I probably know what the answer to this will be.
The
On
Boathouse.
site. On site or off site?
On site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd say that. Excellent. Thank you, Lou.
That's brilliant. It was great sort of insight. It's always fun doing that because we've done, I don't know, when we did ours a few months ago, and every time that we look through the questions now, we think there are a lot of other answers, especially when you look at overrated snacks. So we've spoken to a few people recently and they say Mickey Waffle.
For us.
So we'd just like to know a bit more about you because I've been following you for a few years now with the podcast, and I didn't know sort of that much, how much going through sort of your back catalogue of podcasts. So how long have you been doing it for?
Yeah, it's I've been podcasting since 2005, and a lot of times I'll say that, and people go, "Oh, you mean 2015?" And I'm like, "No, I mean 2005." Like I know I'm like an old man in the podcasting space, but I was very early adopter, really just a couple of months after the technology came out.
Can you remember like your first Disney experience? What sort of brought you into Disney?
Yeah, it's my parents, without a doubt. So we lived in New Jersey. For those of you in the UK, New Jersey is like 1,000 miles from Florida. My mom didn't fly, so we drove down every year. And the first time we went, I was just 3 years old, and it was just like 3 weeks after the park opened in November of '71. I don't have necessarily specific memories of that first trip, but I have very vivid memories of going as a child with my parents. And without a doubt, that is what fostered my love of Disney. Certainly I wouldn't be here without it. And I think my desire to sort of pass that love and passion on to other people as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing we found with doing a podcast is how many people we've spoken to over the past year and had people talk to us and say, especially in the current time, that we all can't get to a Disney park. We're all looking for that extra bit of magic that we can bring into our home. And we all started this last year because we listened to a podcast which had stopped. And we all thought, actually, we want it to carry on in some form. And here we are a year later, and we just can't believe how much we've done in a year and how much fun we've been having doing it.
Yeah, that's it. It's and congratulations on doing it for as long as you have. And that's the thing. Like we started for certain reasons, and then we just realized just how much fun we have doing it, and it never feels like work. I always say it doesn't matter how many people are listening because you do it for yourself, right? You do it because you get to spend time with friends and just talk about this thing that you love, and hopefully, maybe have a little bit of a positive impact on the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's strange talking about sort of going right back into your youth there, Lou, because actually, it's a strange feeling for me. I actually came to Disney late in the day. I was quite old, but how did you actually sustain that enjoyment? I think as you grow older, particularly I've got 2 teenage boys who have got a similar Disney addiction, but I certainly know a lot of teenagers who, once you get to a certain age, it suddenly becomes sort of, in a way, it's deemed as sort of not an enjoyable thing. It's not a cool thing to actually go and say.
Yeah, it's not cool.
Yeah. And so how did you get over that? How did you actually manage to sustain that sort of enjoyment and that love of Disney and the parks, and especially?
Well, for me, it was easy because I was never cool, so I had nothing to worry about. I had no pressure. It's fine. But it is. I went as a kid with my parents, and then I would go with my friends as I got older, and then I went with my wife, and then eventually moved here. And I think there's a couple of different, ways to make sure it never gets, not that it's even not cool or even stale. I don't go to the parks every day. I don't take my kids all the time. So it still is a treat when we go. And the fact that the parks are this living, breathing thing, and it changes so much, so often, there's always something new to discover. There's always a new way to approach it. And as a local, I find that it's more of, it's not a theme park, it's my park. And what I mean by that is it's a place that I go to meet up with friends, have something to eat. There's oftentimes I'll go and not ride a single attraction, or just go and hang out with friends or grab a snack. But I will tell you, there's still something that's special about this place for me. My answer was very easily Magic Kingdom, because I know when I walk in, I still get that smile on my face. And I am not gonna lie to you. When this pandemic is over and I get hopefully next month to step foot in the Magic Kingdom again, this old man's gonna cry, like no doubt about it. Because I'm so excited just to be able to go back there again.
Oh, that's a lovely thought there, Lou, as well. And I think it's something we've spoken about quite a bit as regarding our own feelings, either as we arrive at Magic Kingdom and also when we're leaving Magic Kingdom as well. And I think for somebody who has it right on the doorstep and you visit as often as you do, to have that feeling, to go back in there and feel that way, I think is absolutely superb. It really is.
We've got our trip planned for August, which we fingers crossed hope will happen, but we're not too sure. But we've said that even if the parks were closed, we would still go. We've got sort of stays at 3 resorts with DVC members, so it makes it a bit easier and a bit different. We just want to spend time in a resort.
Yeah.
Never mind crying when I get into Magic Kingdom. I'm going to cry the minute I get on the plane.
Yeah, that's true. If it happens, it can be an emotional trip, but we can't wait. just to step back into the magic and just embrace it.
It's funny you should say, Lou, that even just sometimes just going in and not doing the rides. We recently talked about what the things we kind of missed most about not being able to go to the parks. And pretty much, I didn't predict this, but everyone came back with a similar response of just experiencing it, just going and sitting on one of the benches and taking it all in. And it was funny. We all was kind of agreed on the same point, a roundabout way, where it's not just about the rides. It's just about the place, really, isn't it? And maybe taking a moment, sitting down and just feeling it.
And I think as we start to go back and visit again after this unprecedented closure, I don't think anybody ever really took it for granted, but I think I've always been a big proponent of stopping to quote unquote smell the roses and take in the park on many different levels, including just some of the details and the storytelling and the ambiance and the music. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's going to be a newfound love and appreciation, whether it's your second time going or you're a local who gets to go a little bit more often. I think there's going to be a little bit more appreciation and a lot more enjoyment of the parks now too.
That'll be great. I think it was John said as well on I think it was the last podcast, that you see those families sprinting hand in hand over to Space Mountain when they can see it's got a low wait time, when really they're missing out almost, aren't they? And for people to go back to the parks with a greater level of appreciation, it's just going to kind of get everybody on the same page to a certain degree and let them have that experience of just, as you said, smelling the roses, just taking it all in, just stopping for a second and taking it all in, which would be brilliant.
I think as well, though, it's difficult to do, isn't it? I think we've all been there. I think we've all been in that position where you've all got your fast passes and you always want to do it. But certainly, I think I did say it in the last podcast, Lloyd, wasn't it? It was the fact that once you slow down, the magic actually comes to meet you. And I think it's a lovely way to go about sort of being in a park. And yeah, I can only hope that people have that on their future visits.
I think that's the thing. We go for like 2 weeks every year, and it's so easy to get into the habit of planning every single minute of your holiday, because even though we've got 2 weeks there, it's like we'll book our fast passes, we'll book our ADRs, we've got every minute counted to. But it's actually those times where you don't have, when you just have, I don't know, a morning off and you just get to explore. We always have a sort of every day of one of our trips to go resort hopping, because there's so much at all the resorts that not everyone knows about.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially if you have a limited time on your vacation, there's so much to take in the parks that you almost potentially lose out on exploring the resorts, spending time in Disney Springs, going to a water park, or even just taking the time wandering through the lands. Like a lot of the reason, a lot of things I like to do on my show are not necessarily about, I don't do attraction reviews. It's taking you into the history of something or the details or the land itself so that you understand and appreciate more some of the things that you see that you might have overlooked on that, dash to Splash Mountain or race to space in the morning.
I think that's some of the exciting stuff for me, is the levels of detail that are available and the things that you talk about with your guests as well, Lou. So whether it's Jim Corcus or Tim Foster, and you talk through all those things that we all may overlook, but they're there so very deliberately to draw you into the story and the history and the detail. Those are the things that really excite me and irritate my family when I start pointing them out to them. But, I'm sure that, you're quite right. People just miss it. They miss the point. And actually, the Imagineers have put them there for a reason. And that's the bit that just blows my mind on so many levels, that actually that door number's there for a reason. And yeah, it's fantastic. And I think those are the things that we certainly as a team appreciate probably more than people who are only there on their first visit.
And I think it serves a couple of masters too, right? It makes you appreciate and understand more. It then makes you almost stop and look for things and try and connect the dots. It also it gives you the ability to enhance the experience of the people that you're with. So if you're with your family, if you're with your friends, you can be the bearer of that information and say, hey, do you know why this is there? Or when you're waiting in line, you give them something to do. All of a sudden, like, you not only seem smarter, but like, wow, thanks to you, I understand this more. I appreciate it more. And you make the experience better for the people that you're with.
Talking of backstage detail, we've never been sort of lucky enough to experience the tours of Magic Kingdom, like Keys of the Kingdom. Is any that you'd recommend?
I think if you can do it, I think Backstage Magic is an exceptional tour. It's about 7.5, 8 hours or so. Really, and you asked this in sort of your rapid fire questions, is it preserving the magic or going backstage? I think that it doesn't spoil the magic. I think it enhances your understanding of how it works. You do get to see things that, you maybe have only imagined, whether it's the utilidors. Look, I think going to textile services is one of the most fascinating parts of the tour, because we don't think about how do they really, look, Walt Disney World is a working city, right? In terms of the size, right? It's twice the size of Manhattan. So there's a lot of napkins and pillowcases and sheets that have to be cleaned every day for all those guests. And I think it's remarkable when you see, what happens to make all that magic happen, even some of the most simplest things. And I don't think it spoils it at all. I think it makes you appreciate more just how it works and the people, to use the Walt quote, the people that make the dream a reality.
With the news of Splash Mountain changing last week, what's everyone's sort of opinion? Because it's one that I think we've been talking about a lot over the weekend. We watched Princess and the Frog on Friday night, and I'm really glad Disney have gone this route. I think I could just imagine, and I even got a name of, what was it? Mama Odie's River Run.
Ooh.
Oh, you
Yeah,
like that name?
I like that name, but yeah.
Whether they'll actually choose.
Should it not just be called the ride before beignets?
Instead of ending in a gift shop, it's just a cart of beignets.
End in the beignet store.
Yeah.
They'll probably put some in that gift shop.
I think it'd be interesting to have because in Disneyland, isn't it near New Orleans Square? So I thought that made more sense than it being in Frontierland in Walt Disney World, but it's an interesting sort of way they're going.
It's one of those things that, and listen, if you're bored and have nothing to do, just go read the comments online about the debate between Splash Mountain and the retheme. Look, I there's part of me that is the sentimental, nostalgic that loves Splash Mountain. My kids have always loved the music. But that being said, they've never seen the movie. And taking any sort of a debate or discussion about the movie or any representation in there, the issue is for most guests who have not seen the movie and probably never will, there's a bit of an emotional disconnect to Splash Mountain, right? Their love of the attraction is the love of the attraction and the memories that they have. They don't really know the context of Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, Brer Frog, Brer Bear, other than in there. There is an absolute love, I think, of the Princess and the Frog movie. Look, I love the film. I love the setting. I think it's visually breathtaking. The music is spectacular. And there's definitely a connection that I think a lot of people, especially kids, have to those characters and to that film. So all of a sudden, that will make that attraction much more attractive to people, as opposed to being something that, may not have the tie-in to the film, to the Song of the South film, if that makes any sense. So I'm excited for it, not just because of the beignets, but I think in terms of visuals, I imagine, inside the mountain, seeing Mama Odie's house or seeing Ray and the fireflies. I mean, I think there's a lot that they can do, and bringing that music and that energy in there is going to be what years ago. I don't know if you guys ever saw, there used to be a temporary show that would appear on the riverboat called Tiana's Showboat Jubilee. And the characters and Lewis would come out of the breezeway and they do like a little show on the riverboat. And it brought this amazing energy into Liberty Square. I think that's what this is going to do over in Frontierland as well.
I could just imagine them putting Tiana's place near where was it the Diamond Horseshoe.
I need to go and watch that show now. I didn't even know they did one.
I'm really pleased you said that, Lou, and I think it is that it's that argument against being very traditionalist and looking at what Splash Mountain has been for many, many years. But like it or not, I think we all have to accept that it does need to move on. And I'm fascinated just listening to your perspective of it. And I don't know. I was getting really grumpy at the weekend reading some of the comments, because actually some people had actually taken it to the nth degree, and I don't know. There's a balance to be made, and I think for a lot of people, especially in the States, especially in this country, I think all these changes are only for the benefit of future families going to Disney, and I think that's where we all really need to appreciate, and also the fact that Princess and the Frog doesn't really have a big love as a film. I think there's a good opportunity for Disney to re-release that as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's an amazing film.
But sort of talking of sort of that, is, do we think that Disney are going down a route of introducing IPs into a lot of their attractions? Or is it too much? Because there's been a lot of discussion the past couple of years that, is it going to happen in Epcot? When you think of Inside Out, Coco, do you think it's too much, or do you think we should sort of stick with tradition and just have something very original?
You know, we went through the same thing again when Maelstrom closed down, and Twitter lost their collective minds, right? That they were bringing Frozen in to Epcot, and Walt didn't want it that way. And I'm not so sure that that's true. Walt built Disneyland as a place where we as guests could live inside the adventures and the films that we saw on TV and in the movies. I don't think that anything was necessarily off limits there. And look, let's be honest. Maelstrom was not the biggest attraction anywhere. No kid was going, hey, Mom and Dad, can we go to Disney World so we can go ride Maelstrom and see the oil rig at the end? You put Frozen in, all of a sudden you're going to get kids into a part of Disney World that may not have been as fun for them. So I have no problem with it because it fits in organically to me. And as a parent, when my kids were younger, Frozen would have been much more attractive than, the scary trolls and the big bear and the oil derrick at the end. So I love Mary Poppins. I'm thrilled with Mary Poppins going in there. The Ratatouille attraction is going to be wonderful. Again, I think the general answer is, if and when it's appropriate, it's fine. Even if Inside Out were to come, it would make sense to potentially see something like that, as opposed to trying to, create new characters or new storylines sometimes.
Lou, on Maelstrom, did you ever run across the movie theatre at the end to get through the far doors before they closed?
Listen, sometimes I had lunch reservations and I needed to. My dad though loved that film, and unfortunately, he didn't live long enough for us to go to Norway, but he would always watch it and be like, we need to go to Norway. We need to go and see the fjords and all that. But I understand. I do.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in that, because actually the whole IP debate, it kind of, for us, I think it's something I think we struggle with, even as a team. We some of us really like some of the overlays, and somebody like me who's a sort of slightly aging goes down the traditional route as well of actually enjoying what was there. But there has to be that acceptance that change has to happen, as long as it's good change, I hasten to add. And it's not change for change's sake. But there's some of the things, like I say, Frozen certainly did make a difference to Maelstrom.
Talking of sort of retheming, we really like the look of Mission Breakout in Disneyland, and I think that's hopefully fingers crossed will come to Paris eventually, especially as where it is in the park is like right next to sort of where Marvel Land is being built.
Yeah, it's funny because Disney announces a change, the internet loses its marbles, and then Guardians opens and they're like, oh my God, it's the best attraction ever. I think Disney has earned our trust in that they know what they're doing. They've done the research to know that the changes that they're making is trying to make something that's good even better. And I think on a more practical sense, we also have to remember, Disney is in the business of making money. It is a business, and, business decisions sometimes need to be made that have to, you take into account the history and the sentiment and the emotion, but there's also new generations of fans that are coming in too. And I'm sure you're getting way more people riding, and I know for a fact you're getting way more people riding Mission Breakout than you ever did the attraction before the change.
Is there any ride existing at the moment where, without changing the sort of concept of the ride, you'd like to just throw another overlay over the top? Maybe change it slightly, but just completely re-theme it really with a new overlay.
Oh, that's interesting. So I'm very quickly going through like Walt Disney. So re-theme is something with a new overlay. This one's it's relatively easy because I think it's coming and I would like to see it happen. I think Journey into Imagination in its current state is not what I remembered as a kid. I would love to see Figment remain, be the star of that attraction once again. I wish they could go back and expand the track to what it used to be. I mean, it's about 40% shorter than what it was when the attraction first opened in 1983. So I'd love to see that old track come back, Figment be back in sort of a re-theming of the whole attraction and pavilion, I think.
Ben, you said you'd like to see Figment as a big part of that, didn't you?
Yeah, I think Figment is sort of it's one of those things in Epcot that he's got the ride, which always worries me that they're going to put Inside Out in it and replace Figment and you lose Figment. But I personally think that Figment should be like the narrator in Spaceship Earth. I don't know how well that would go down, but I just think I'd like to see that.
A lot of people just love Figment though, so if they did do anything, I can't see them getting rid of him.
Well, maybe that's the reason why that they haven't touched that attraction yet.
The merchandising opportunities with Figment alone are enough for them to keep him.
Well, and we're seeing him coming back. I think over the last few years, if you sort of step back and take a look, hindsight is 2020. Figment is becoming much more prominent in festivals, on merchandise, on T-shirts, and he's sort of back to being the unofficial mascot of Epcot. I think next year that unofficial title will almost become a little bit more official. Again, timelines being pushed back as they were. I think this is ramping things up for much more Figment in the parks.
That's a good call, that, Lou, because actually, if you go back even 4, 5, 6 years, and Duffy seemed to take that plush role within Epcot as the one where all the merch was sort of aimed towards, and there was no context for Duffy actually to be within Epcot whatsoever. And I think within Epcot, Figment belongs there, and I think in a way it's like a spiritual figurehead for the park, isn't it? I don't know. I could never understand Duffy in the first place, so that's another.
I understand what you're saying, but it's interesting that you say that because, and I think this is where and the only park I haven't been to yet is Paris. I'm hoping to go this year, but the different parks culturally, having been to the other countries, they might look the same, but there's a lot that's different. So in Japan, for example, Duffy is huge. Like, I think Duffy's bigger than Mickey Mouse there. Like, It is an obsession with the Japanese guests. Here, Duffy did not go over as well. And I think that you're right. I think we just don't have that emotional connection to it. He was just another character that was a plush. And I think that's why he was not as widely accepted here. And Disney said, okay, we'll still have a little bit of a presence, but I think I do. I just have a feeling that and that's why if you go to the Imagination Pavilion now, the post show is pretty empty. There you can see something is going to be coming, and I think they deliberately didn't make any announcement about it at D23 Expo, holding it off for later. I actually think something was going to come at Destination D this year, which was unfortunately just postponed. Yeah. So that might shift the timelines a little bit, but I think Imagination is next to get a little or a lot of love in Epcot.
No, that's really good, Doug. So actually, we were trying to sort of think of many of the differences between the Disney parks throughout the world, and I've got to say, out with the United States, which park do you think has got the most to offer our listeners? Take Paris out of the equation, but we've got a lot of people in the UK at the moment who are planning sort of journeys to pastures new because of the situation in the US. what would you where would you say to our listeners would be a really good starting place for, even just for the culture, if nothing else?
There is no question, no doubt, far and away, the most exceptional Disney park on the planet is Tokyo Disney Sea. Like, not even close. And I live here. I grew up here. Like, Walt Disney World is my home. I have an affinity for Disneyland, but Tokyo Disney Sea is exceptional in every stretch of the word. From the cast members, it's a culture of service, the stories, the theming, the lack of IP, and some of the amazing attractions that they've built in terms of Journey to the Center of the Earth, and some of the other things are just, and I know it's an IP because it was a movie and a book, but it's not like a Disney movie that was based on. The food is exceptional. It is spotless. You could eat off the ground in Tokyo. I could go on and on and on about it. And just even from a cultural perspective, I personally love Japan. I love Japanese history and culture. I love the food, obviously. There's a lot that I think that we can learn, both as Disney fans and storytelling and culture and respect for one another. I really fell very, very much in love, in case you can't tell, with Tokyo Disney Sea.
I have to admit, Tokyo's always been on our list and would love to visit all of them one day. It's just having the money and the time to go around all of them.
They're all on our list.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
Imagineering story didn't help with that either.
Now that you have a podcast, it's research, so you sort of have to go. You're doing it for your listeners.
It's a research
You're doing
trip.
it for your listeners.
So this is my point. This is what I keep trying to tell my husband, that because next year we're planning a 3-week trip, hopefully, to the West Coast, taking Disneyland, and then a trip over to Hawaii to go to Aulani. And I keep telling him, this is research. This is for the greater good.
And if you think about it, Claire, as long as you're in Hawaii, you're like halfway to Tokyo. So you might as well just
go the long way home.
Go that way.
Yeah.
Go all the way around.
Listen, Shanghai is like right across the street. So you just go over to Shanghai, hit Hong Kong, stop in Paris, and you're home.
Exactly.
Claire, have you got room in your suitcase?
For how many people?
2.
Put my name on that list as well, I think. Sounds
Yeah.
Sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah.
So Lou, sorry, I'm going to backtrack for a minute. You mentioned Disneyland Paris and you're hoping to get there soon. I know that for me particularly, and a few of our other people, we love a bit of DLP. When do you think you might get there? Not pushing you for actual dates, just month would do.
I was hoping to go this fall. I really was hoping to go this fall, or in the spring. Obviously, a lot of that's going to be out of my control to a certain degree. I'm hoping, things normalize and get better sooner rather than later, because it's the only park I haven't been to. I've never seen anything. I don't watch ride-through videos. I've heard rumors of your castle and your dragon, but I want to see it with my own eyes first.
Yeah, it's a really different, and we've had a lot of conversations about, one of the big things that happens in the UK is people say, is it worth going to Disneyland Paris if you're a fan of Walt Disney World? A sit down meal will take you 2 or 3 hours because that's normal in Paris, and actually it's a very different experience, but it's still Disney and the cast members are still amazing and you still get all of those different experiences, and the castle's the most beautiful.
I think Lloyd and myself are very guilty of this, aren't we? Is the fact that you think, oh, well, we'll do a trip to Paris, and then you have a sneaky look at flight prices to go to Orlando, and then suddenly a trip to Paris is suddenly in the bin. And I don't know whether you felt the same. And I know you've been quite out there from the start tonight and just saying it's the one park you've never visited. But for us, it's Walt Disney World always seems to get the vote before Paris. You probably feel the same thing. There's always obviously other things that you wanted to go and see before Paris.
It's just that my travels haven't taken me there yet. And I understand from your perspective, if you're going to travel, you're weighing Disneyland, Paris. I mean, look, here we have 4 parks, 2 water parks, Disney Springs, so many more resorts. I mean, there's a lot more to do when you get here. I understand. Obviously, I mean, I know that you're going to Paris, but I visited the other parks for a variety of reasons. I travel to speak quite a bit. So the first time I was in Hong Kong is when I had a layover after flying back from the Philippines. I had a 9-hour layover, and a friend of mine said, you can do it. It's a very easy sort of quick trip in. And then I've done a couple of adventures by Disney to both China and to Japan that are work trips. So it's they've afforded me the opportunity to go. And I've been trying to put together a group trip to Paris. But again, COVID has not been helpful in that regard at all.
Yeah, 2020 has been an interesting year.
Yeah.
It started off with us going to Paris in February, and since then, our August trip seems further and further away.
Everything kind of went downhill about March-ish.
Yeah.
Just keep everything crossed for August.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you guys are going to be okay. I do. I think you're going to be okay.
I hope so. I have 2 boathouse bookings made already, so this is important.
I've got Boathouse and Homecoming booked.
Yeah,
that's a nice day right there.
So we've not done either yet, so it's...
Don't tell him
You just
that.
stumble between the 2. It's
So
fine.
good.
You just
So good.
I think that's the thing, going back to your point, John, about choosing Walt Disney World versus Disneyland Paris. There's just so much at Disney Springs that I could just spend 2 weeks just eating all the way around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange because actually I was writing about this last night and just typing up some notes from last year, and it's really strange because it then led me on to sort of research, and just I think it's back to 2013 was when the plans were unveiled for the Springs, and if you go back and look what was at Downtown Disney, and to compare it 7 years later, it is just unrecognizable. And the quality of the place is just so much sort of raised, the expectation of what you get when you arrive there. And the fact that you don't spend all that time going around the parking lot. Just I'll keep Lou in on the conversation. Don't you go around the parking lot trying to find a space. It's now multi-story car parking, and it's changed the whole of that area, and it's so much for the better. It really is.
As a local, I spend more time at Disney Springs than I do in the parks, and that's not a joke. Because it's easy just to sort of pop over with your family for something to eat, or go with friends and have, late night snacks, and there's live entertainment, and it's just a wonderful place just to sort of go and wander.
We've thought of doing a 7-day trip once and just stay at Saratoga Springs, just so we can just walk around to Disney Springs and just sort of walk slowly back every evening.
Only walk, we're not going to stagger then.
No, stagger slowly. Depends how much we have to drink.
Well, knowing us, not much. Except when we go with Claire.
You're saying Claire's a bad influence?
That's a terrible influence.
I hope so. That's my goal in life.
Is that the goal for August?
Nomad Lounge. I'm there. I'm just taking a seat on the sofa outside, and I'm staying there for 2 weeks. That's it. You're not moving me.
But then you won't get your boat.
Oh no, okay.
Dinner.
I might nip over to Disney Springs for Boathouse and
you've got to stay at the Poly, haven't you?
Yeah, Trader Sam's, although it's not opening. So who knows?
Yeah.
It'll be good.
August is a few months away yet.
It is.
Lou, what did it feel like? Because I watched your live video last week of when you went to the Poly. What was it like stepping to a resort for the first time in a few months?
And look, I will admit I'm must be going through menopause or something, because I'm an emotional wreck. But I got there and I got very choked up, being back on property again, and it was very eerie, because when do we go to a resort and there's nobody there? I mean, there was maybe 2 people in the lobby. There was one other table. And the only reason why I was there, to be clear, was a friend had a reservation at Kona. They were Disney Vacation Club members. They asked me if I wanted to join. Of course, I said yes. There was one other table being served at Kona Cafe, and there was maybe 2 or 3 other people inside the resort. There was maybe 10 at the pool. So it was wonderful to be there. I loved just hearing the music, and I mean, I had my mask on, so I couldn't really, but you sort of imagine what that smell of the Polynesian is like, and then going outside and seeing Magic Kingdom across the lake. It did. I sort of I had this like swell of emotion being back there again and really realizing just how much I missed it. And by the way, just a quick aside, my lunch was delicious. So I was so excited to be back in the Disney restaurant.
I think that's the thing. We've been looking through menus for our August trip, and I think a few months ago when we booked all our ADRs, we thought, oh, we'll have this on the menu, have that on the menu, like what we normally have. And now it's with the limited menus in a lot of them we've had to change, or not change, but
they've got to change them all.
Yeah, it's like we like the was it the Grand Sandwich from Grand Floridian Cafe? That's now changed, and that's always been something that's always been our go-to. But in a way, it's now pushed us to look for something different. It's like we'd never had a chance to do Homecoming and Boathouse yet, so it's a good thing, good replacement.
So have you found any of the limited menus, reduced menus?
Yeah.
To have food that you would normally eat taken off, so you've had to find an alternative?
Very few. I mean, there have been some changes to the menu. Like the first time I went to Morimoto was one of the first couple of days they had opened. So they didn't have sushi yet. The menu was probably 2/3 of what it normally was, but there were still a lot of the familiar favorites that I liked. As time is going on, we're seeing it opening up more and more. Homecoming, there was maybe 2 or 3 items that weren't on the menu, but you're going to get the staples and the sandwiches and the fried chicken and whatnot there. So it hasn't really been much of an impact in terms of the reduced menus. As the Disney resort restaurants open, we'll see if that changes at all.
And hopefully, is the pimento cheese dip still on the Boathouse menu?
Oh,
I'm asking for a friend. That's all.
And what you need to do is you need to compare the pimento cheese dip at the Boathouse with the pimento cheese dip on the Hush Puppies in Homecoming and see which one wins There's no losers, just so you know. There's no losers in that battle.
So one for lunch, one for dinner.
And if you need any help deciding, I'm here. Just so you know, I'm local. So.
I was going to say, Lou, it's strange. It's one of the things that we often listen to your show in the car with my kids, and it's actually the reviews of all the food that sort of start the kids off on when are we going again? When are we going again? We need to go there. The next time we're going, we need to go there. And it's a fantastic thing to listen to from sort of thousands of miles away, and it just your joy of what you're actually eating comes across so much. I mean, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to sort of get it in your own mind of exactly why haven't we been there before? And you get a row from my wife. It's just like, you told us that wasn't very good, and then there's Lou telling us now that this is better, the best place that we should have gone to.
Well, 1, thank you for listening. 2, I love the fact that comes through, that joy comes through, because I think you guys know, as podcasters and content creators, it's one thing to write something, but one of the reasons why I love the medium is because people can hear when you're smiling. They can hear when you're happy, and I think that comes through. And for me, the mission of my show is to bring positivity and joy to people, and the fact that I get to eat makes it even better. So, and I do, because I do want to turn people on to restaurants that maybe they wouldn't have tried otherwise. Oh, I don't like that kind of food. Well, if you hear somebody else and you hear the way they do it and it's completely authentic because I do no editing at all of it, that the reactions are genuine, because I want you to feel like, you're sitting there with me. And I love the fact that you can listen with your kids. Like, that's huge to me. I've always, since day one, because Disney is associated with what I do, it had to be 100% family friendly.
Yeah. And certainly that positivity mantra is something that I think we've felt as a team amongst our podcast is something that has seen us over the past few months. We've actually, in a way, it's actually made us much stronger, because it'd be so easy. And I think a lot of people who listen to us are feeding off our positivity at this time, and it's so easy to just sort of moan about everything, complain about everything. I'm trying desperately not to swear because I get into trouble from Ben when you have to edit out my swearing. But it's like that. It's very, very easy to be so critical all of the time. And yet that positivity comes through, and it's strange because people at this particular moment in 2020 are actually feeding off that positivity, because it's not out there in the general media, is it? You know, the TV don't show it, and actually to find podcasts such as yourselves, and us, you know, I'll shamelessly plug our own show. It is that whole positive bit, and it's like I say, it's difficult to do, but it's when you've got people listening just because you're being positive. I think you're definitely doing something right.
Yeah.
You recently put out something though, Lou, which has opened old wounds amongst our podcast, and it's basically it's opened up the rift.
I can't believe you're
between
going to go
us.
here.
So nervous. I'm so sorry. Whenever I said I'm sorry.
There's 8 of us on the. There's 8 of us that usually do the show. Sammy, Jill, and Peter can't be here tonight, but between the 8 of us, it's pretty much an even split. Although we voted on this and it didn't go even because one of them won against the other. Nemo versus Festival of the Lion King. Now we know your order, and that makes a couple of us happy, especially John. I just wanted to, because it's a very controversial subject on our show, we just wanted to ask sort of the reasoning of why that order for yourself, really, and see if it sort of resonates with anything we feel.
So, and I think I said this on the live show, as I was doing my top 5 live stage shows in Walt Disney World. Nemo and Festival were 1 and 2. Like they were switching spots back and forth. And I very easily could have swapped positions. I think the only reason why Nemo jumped to 1 for me, and I haven't seen it in a long time, like I need to go back, is because of the personal memories I have of my son and him falling asleep to that soundtrack every night. The fact that it was something, you know, we talk about IP in the park, but this was something that was new, created for an IP that hadn't been there before. Like, I think it's brilliant turning that non-musical movie into a musical stage show and it reaching the level of Broadway quality. And that was the only thing I think for me that sort of tipped the scales to Nemo over Lion King. But again, I love them both equally. Like your children, I love them both equally.
With Ben, with Lou's votes for Nemo, where does that put us for the show then? Does that tip us over?
No,
I have a feeling
no.
we might have to
sorry.
move on the votes.
No. I hosted that show. We're not having this. We're not going there.
Let's not wash our dirty washing in public.
Listen, if the worst thing you guys have to fight about is Nemo versus Lion King, you are doing awesome. So
Yeah.
Champagne
It is a big issue.
What I do like, every poll we've put on Twitter or Facebook about it, it's been 50-50. Unless once John gets his son's kids to
Not
vote
me.
for
No.
Multiple
everything.
votes.
Me, my son just merely pulled in a couple of friends.
Couple.
A couple of 100.
It's
As long as they start listening to the podcast, we don't mind.
Yeah, it's strange though, because actually I come back to this all the time, and I know every time I mention it, it hits Lloyd as well, and it is that dad and son bit, isn't it? And it's towards the end of the show, and it's the love your dad bit at the very end. Oh. And every single time I could watch that show, every single time it's performed in a day, and every single performance I would be in tears. Yep. Just at the ending, and I don't know what it does. It just something within me. It just absolutely resonates, and I loved listening to your show last week about it because I was there, and we've gone down the list, and I'm thinking, here we go. He's not mentioned Nemo yet.
I was watching the comments as I'm going through my list, and I saw people saying, if you don't put Lion King number 1, if you don't put Nemo number 1, so. But that's the thing, and that's, I think, why we love Disney. That's why we do podcasts about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the way it makes us feel, right? The emotional connection that we have and the emotional reaction that we have to things. I don't think anything else does it the same way that Disney does.
Yeah.
No, that's true. I work with a lot of people at work, and they don't understand my sort of affiliate, what I think of Disney. They don't understand that. I don't think a lot of them haven't been to Disney World. They've just been to Paris and they've done it on a one-day trip. So they've not really experienced it properly, and they haven't yet found that sort of thing that I found with the first time we went, because we went on our honeymoon and we just fell in love with it. And ever since then, we've been back every year.
That emotional connection.
Yeah.
1971, Lou. What was the first moment that you can kind of remember that you thought this is it? Was there a moment, or was it kind of just everything? Or I'm intrigued, really.
So I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily have my first, memory of the earliest time that I was there, but I do know, for some reason, I don't know why, I have this memory, and I'm pretty sure it was 1976 because I had this really bad Mickey Mouse hat that had like red, white, and blue on it. And I have a brother who's 6 years younger than I was. And I remember being in Tomorrowland with my dad, my mom, my brother, and my parents were always incredibly generous. They brought, my cousins down with us, and we were standing in Tomorrowland looking out. And my dad, I'm going to start crying. My dad had and I don't know how he did it. He had me in one arm and he had my brother in the other. And again, having two little kids, I don't know how he lifted the both of us. And I just sort of remember looking at my dad and looking at my mom and my cousins and this memory of looking out over Tomorrowland. And I don't know what it was that made it stick with me, but that's what I mean. Like, I think we love this place not because, this ride is the best ride in the world. It's because of the way that it helps us create these lasting memories with our friends or our family. And that's why we keep going. That's why you go for 2 weeks, right? That's why you podcast about it. It's why we continue to go back.
Now, spot on that. I think it's a strange one because I've got a friend that we've met a number of times out there, and I'm sure Neil won't mind me mentioning. Is the fact we actually went to the football or soccer, and he invited me, and we were two sort of middle-aged blokes in this football pub with singing all around us and all that. And there was two guys just talking complete Disney. And every single time I talk about this, and he keeps texting me time and time again, and he just said, "You've used the word emotional attachment again." And that's all it is. And way back, this is probably, we first met 2008. This would be about 2010 we went to the football. And he keeps harking on, and I keep using it. And I think that's exactly what it is. And I think what you're describing is something that hopefully my kids have fed off for many years. I know Lloyd's kids are the same. Claire, your kids are the same. And I think for you, for Ben and Becca, I think for you guys, you're at the start of this journey. It's because they're young, Lou. You see that?
Rude.
But it's that huge bit about going to Disney. It doesn't have to be the fastest ride. It doesn't have to be the best ride. It is that fact that you're there, and it's the whole thing that pervades the park whilst you're there. Sorry, Claire, you were going to say.
No, I was just going to agree with you, to be honest with you, John. Whether it's, my two kids, they're 10 years apart in age, and there's something that happens when we're there, and they suddenly become best friends, which is amazing. And they share those experiences together, which actually are not repeatable anywhere else. People say, "Why do you go there?" And it's because actually we can all go there, we can do something together that we enjoy, and it doesn't matter whether you're 17 and a bit grumpy or 7 and full of princess love. Actually, there's something for everyone. I do wonder whether the 17 and princess love might go together as well, older brother. But there is something, actually, my kids know that the special thing that Disney brings us as a family. It brings us together, and that's the important bit. And it's interesting you talking about earlier your kids listening to Lou's show and stuff. Actually, my 7-year-old daughter knows Lou's voice, and she recognizes you, and she said, "Mummy, is that Lou?" when we're driving to school and things. And it's ever so funny, and we've done things as a family because you and your guests and other people who put content out like you have recommended it. We have eaten at the boathouse twice. We've sat in the Chris Craft boat twice, which is just the best thing ever. But there's things that we do because people understand what it is that we would want to do, even though actually you're a million miles away. So I think there is something really special about how it bonds a unit together, whether that be direct family, extended family. My cousins live in New York. They drive down, they drive or fly down and meet us. and we spend time to just having fun together. It doesn't matter ages. It's indiscriminate, the love that we have for it.
You know, and going back to something you said, you talked about something being the best this or the best that. If you pay really close attention to 50 years of marketing for Walt Disney World, never, not once, will you ever hear them say, we've got the tallest coaster, the fastest thing, the best water slide, the tallest, the fastest. They will never sort of use those absolutes in how they describe things. Watch any of the commercials or read any of the advertisement. What is it really about, right? It's not about the attractions per se. It's about the feelings that you have and the memories that you create. Those things are secondary or almost tertiary to the reasons why we go and the reasons why we go back, as opposed to every other theme park that advertises itself as, we've got the longest, the fastest, the scariest roller coaster in the United States. Well, that's fine, right? You set a bar for something that somebody else can eclipse later on, but nobody has been able to match or beat the way that Disney creates all those things that you're talking about in terms of the emotion.
I think the closest thing our competitors come close to Disney, and we'll probably agree, is Diagon Alley to a lot of Harry Potter fans. And I think that's probably the closest, and maybe Universal is at a good point at the minute with their Epic Universe. That'll also keep pushing Disney further along. So it means that we're going to get more things like we see with Tron. And I think, in a way, competition's really good.
Yeah.
Because I can't wait to ride Tron.
It's amazing.
I'm with you. It looks incredible, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a big coaster fan, but looking at that, I just can't wait.
So Lou, have you've ridden Tron already?
Yes.
Okay. Is it as good as I think it's going to be?
I think it far exceeded my expectations. It was not what you can see it from the outside. You can watch construction videos. You can watch ride-throughs, which you should not do. But when you get in there, and look, I grew up with the original Tron, and I always dreamt of riding in a light cycle. That's exactly what you feel like. And when you sort of lean down and you grab those handlebars and you're sort of locked in, I was grinning ear to ear. And it's a remarkable experience, inside, outside, daytime, nighttime. Really, really, really well done.
Is it another one a bit like Big Thunder Mountain that you need to ride at night to really experience the luminescence of it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is a beautiful, beautiful at night.
I can't wait. I'm so excited by it.
So, Claire, are you going to change your plans for next year and go to Walt Disney World for its opening? Or are you going to try and do the world trip?
If we don't get there in August, which I'm absolutely confident we will, we can rebook our accommodation for any time up to 2023. So, we'll be there, whether that be later this year or early next year or late next year, whenever. We'll be going again. We know it's a definite. There's no question.
Yeah. It's never if, it's just when.
Exactly.
It's just penciling it in.
Exactly. It's finding that gap.
Yeah, that's the, in a way, a downside of being a DVC member, because we look at our points every year. We know, when are we going back next year? What can we make the most of our points of? And we know we're always going to go back.
We know we're going to go back anyway, so...
Yeah.
DVC or no DVC, we're going back every year anyway.
The only downside is trying to choose which resort to stay at. So... I
think Lou, for a lot of us, from being sort of across the Atlantic Ocean, you always have to have that bit of planning of when you're going back, because it makes sort of everyday life across here that bit more bearable when you actually know that you're going back to your happy place, and it might be in a year's time, 2 years' time, and I think all of us would trade places with you. Just be that bit closer. I think for all of us, we would love to just be able to get in the car and just go down the road and then go and visit a park, and then as part of your everyday life. I think that would be amazing.
I'm very hyper aware, and I am grateful every day to be able to do what I do, to live where I live, and the fact that one person listens to me talk about this thing that I love, the gift that they give me by allowing me to do this. I'm very self-aware of the blessing that I have because of that.
Must have been very scary though in 2005, just making that initial leap. But euphoric at the same time when you decided do you know what, we are going to do this?
I'm going to let you on a little secret. It was very scary back then. It's scary every day, right? It's scary every day because, I don't have a job that I go to and at the end of 2 weeks I get a paycheck. Like, when you're an entrepreneur, it's all on you. So that was a huge leap of faith and leaving things behind. And, I was a lawyer. So, I had gone to school. I had planned my whole life for the sort of career path, and I did a complete 180 and did something different. But I think fear is a great motivator, right? So it's why it helps us continue to, not just do what we do, but hopefully to improve every day, and to raise our own standards as well. So, a little bit of fear is not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Nah, look where it's got you now. Yeah, I've been looking at properties in Orlando on YouTube and just dreaming the past couple of weeks.
Always look.
Yeah, don't look at the ones in Celebration, Lloyd. It's like telephone numbers when you get down to the price.
Golden Oak. Just look at Golden Oak.
Golden Oak.
Anyway.
And we're all chipping in for Golden Oak, aren't we? We're all going
are.
in.
If we have a
Yeah, once
lottery.
we won the lottery.
So Lou, we play the lottery quite regularly, and we have this ongoing joke that if we win enough money, we'll buy a property in Golden Oak. We'll share it between the team. We had a view that we were going to buy a bit of land in the middle of lake somewhere and build something, and we all had our jobs to
Hotel, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were going to build a hotel. We all had a role to play,
Well, if you need somewhere to go check in on your Golden Oak property every so often, I'm right here. Like, it's right down the street. So we'll do that for you.
Keep an eye on it for us.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's fantastic.
sort of bit of blue sky thinking. If with the parks being closed, if you could, I don't know, choose 4 rides that you could go in on your own, and if the park was to yourself, what would they be?
One in each park.
Yeah, so one from each park, and
Lou's day at the parks, one ride each.
One
park.
ride in each of the parks. So, gosh, I was going to say, believe it or not, in Magic Kingdom, I love the TTA. There's something just relaxing about it and the narration, but I would probably ride the Haunted Mansion in Magic Kingdom. In Epcot, Epcot's tough.
Can I throw a curveball?
You could, if it's your show, you can do whatever you want.
So I'm going to open it up to extinct attractions as well.
Oh, now it's there you go. All right.
I see what you did there, Claire.
So I was going to say Horizons, but I think it has to be the original Journey into Imagination, just for Dreamfinder and the music and everything else like that. Hollywood Studios, I will go with. I want to say Tower of Terror, but you can't ride it like 7 times in a row. So I have to find something that
you can.
I mean, you can, but it's going to be a rough afternoon if you do. Gosh, but the theming there is so good. You know what? I have to say Rise of the Resistance. I mean, I sort of hate to sort of go with the easy new one. And in Animal Kingdom, it's the Up Bird Show. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, it's
not a bad show.
Yeah, Flight of Passage is remarkable. Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't choose Navi River Journey.
Oh,
if it was longer, I think it's a beautiful attraction. I wish it was originally it was supposed to be longer. They did have to cut it back, and if it were, there's something wonderful and beautiful and very calm and relaxing about that. So
nice sort of 5-10 minutes of aircon.
It is very pretty though.
Yeah,
I did Navi before I did Flight of Passage.
Yeah, because we were lucky we got to do the DVC preview of
I chickened out.
Yeah, it broke down 4 times before we got a chance to go on it.
Oh.
So it was like we were in the queue for about 45 minutes to an hour, which nowadays
nice.
you'd like to do. But yeah, no.
Yeah, when things start going wrong, I start freaking out. So
yeah, every time we walked towards the link chamber, then we come back out and then back in. But yeah, no, Flight Passage is, I think, my number 1 attraction until we do Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil sort of the Navi River journey for you, Lou. But I keep telling loads of people this same story, so I'll let Ben edit it out of the show. But just listen for the shaman at the end, because my youngest son started singing this song, and it's my earwax, my earwax, my earwax. You will never ride the ride again without just that getting into your own ears itself. I promise. It's never been the same for us again.
Oh, that's brilliant. Next time we do that ride, that's all I'm going to be thinking of now, John.
But you come off singing it now. That's the problem. It just stays. It stays forever.
There's going to be a next time.
There has to be a next time, Claire.
There's always a next time.
Yeah.
No.
We always like to get on all our trips to try and get as many attractions in as we can. So even if it is something that might have a shorter wait.
Going back to what Lou had said about Tower of Terror, it was strange. Go back to 2010, and they did was it Summer Night Tastic, and at that time we actually had an annual pass, so they did a pass holder night, and it got to the stage where you could actually we just walked through the pre-show, so they opened both doors, and you just kept going through again and again and again, and the only thing that was wrong with it was my youngest son was too small at that time to ride it. My eldest son was just tall enough to ride it. By the time we just kept going forever, and I think we did it about 10 or 11 times, and it's just amazing. It's just like the most fantastic. To me, that is the most fantastic ride within the studios, because it's different every time. You see things differently every time, and again, going back to that same point about the rides at Disney, they are so well themed that no matter how many times you've ridden them over umpteen years, you always see something new, and I think that's the most fabulous thing.
I agree. That's what I was saying before. The opportunity for discovery, no matter how many times you ride something or walk through a land, is I think what the re-rideability factor is not just how much you enjoy the ride. It's some of the other aspects of it that you get to sort of see for the first time as well.
Yeah. And I think that's missing, certainly in the UK. You know, I'd love to say we could recommend a really good theme park in the UK for you to come and experience. But, you know, my kids, I think we were probably about 5 years ago, we went to a theme park. And before you actually got to the ride, the only thing that kept you interested in the queue was the different graffiti that people had scrawled into the wall as they were waiting, you know. And it was just like, and it was, again, it's the kids that pick up on this, and they turn around and they said, well, why have people done that? And I said, well, they're bored. You know, they've got a wait time of 45 minutes. They've got a pen in the pocket. They might as well leave a little message to everybody who comes after them. And that's the difference. You know, Disney is not like that. It's immersive, and it's, you know, you've got that the whole thing about not knowing when a queue is a queue and when it's actually part of the whole ride as well, which is, you know, one of the things with Star Wars in particular now, isn't it?
So I'm going to ask a question. Which ride do you think has the best queue line? So I was talking about it with my daughter earlier in the car on our way home from school. And she was saying, Mummy, I think Pirates of the Caribbean has an amazing queue because it's dark and it's mysterious and it adds, you know, everything, and you can play I Spy. And I was like, it's a bit dark, but yeah, you can. Because obviously there are attractions where the queue line just adds everything. And if you miss it, if you fast pass it, if you miss it, you miss out the atmosphere, you miss out half the story. Have you got queue lines that you think you have to do?
I think Rise of the Resistance is definitely one, because I think Rise of the Resistance does an amazing job of blurring the line between where your sort of ride experience begins and even where it ends. Yes, you get into a queue, but I think your attraction begins while you're in the land. And the way the attraction ends and how you sort of come off, it almost doesn't feel like it has this finite ending, because you sort of seamlessly flow out and your story continues into the park itself. So I think that is incredible, immersive, interactive storytelling at its finest. With maybe, I think Flight of Passage does a pretty good job of that as well. When you go through the lab, But I think that's what you're going to start seeing is we started seeing with Soarin' and Space Mountain, but you're going to see the queues have a much more interactive element that's going to make you sort of forget that you're waiting in line.
Yeah. Now, I'd agree with the Flight of Passage queue, though, because I know it's always it's always one of those things that when you go and book your fast passes for a trip, it's certainly the one that I'm desperate to make sure that we ride Flight of Passage. But there are those days where you have to get in for rope drop just to be in the standby queue. It's amazing. The detailing and some of the things that you can see within it. I'm not going to start reeling off spoilers for people, but it's a beautiful queue, and I don't often say that very often about having a queue up for anything, So yeah, I'd agree with where you're going with that.
There's not many rides that are queue 90 minutes full. And I have to admit, we've done Flight of Passage once.
Yeah.
We did it in the evening. I don't think it was 90 minutes, but just spending that in the queue, it was amazing.
Can't remember.
It's because every time we've done it, Flight of Passage has always been a fast pass. So just seeing it from a different.
I have
point of
never
view.
done the standby line for Flight of Passage.
Oh,
I've only...
You do it once. Yeah, you got to do it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel bad now. I'm British and I didn't queue. What's that about?
You still queue in the fast pass.
And
Yeah.
I'll tease you with this to sort of reinforce what I said before about Tokyo. They have Soarin' there as well, and there's a section in the queue. There's a pre-show in Soarin', which is not only the best pre-show you might see anywhere, but it has technology that I've not only never seen before, I still have no idea how they've done. It is mind-blowing. And you almost don't even care about the attraction anymore because you're like, what did I just see in the queue?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's
Maybe that'll be distracting enough.
I think we need to go to Tokyo.
Don't go.
Just a
Don't
queue.
go to
Just-
YouTube. Don't watch the
Yeah.
video. Watch it. You
No.
need to wait.
I think what Disney needs to do is, I know they do like the premier annual pass for California, but they need to do one for
Right.
all Disney parks around the world.
My God, how much would that cost?
I don't know, but I'd love to do it.
Yeah, they need a
Just imagine
global annual pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Becca's on the phone to the bank manager already.
It's like 10 grand.
Ben, that has to be
And
that
a
has
bit
to be
more.
the most British thing you have ever said. That I need to go to Tokyo to stand in a queue.
The question that's burning here, though, Lou, is the fact that is the Eiffel Tower straight on the screen when you get into Soarin' in Tokyo?
I know it's a little, so do you prefer the new Soarin' or the old Soarin'?
Old one. I don't like soaring very much because I don't do heights, but I prefer the old one.
Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah.
I love Soarin'. I love both versions of it. I don't think they plussed it as much as they possibly could have done when they changed the film. And I think that was a real disappointment because there was an opportunity to really go to the nth degree. And I think once again, they just pulled either budgets or they pulled something, because actually it then means that you go back to the original ride over California. And that again just appears to be so much. It's just done much better on the eye, Even though the old film was all grainy and there was big black spots on it and so on. I've always thought though it'd be fascinating if they could actually program if just one of the 3 screens at Epcot with the old ride, or maybe just at random. One of them, and you wouldn't know which version of Soarin' you were going to go and ride, and I think that would be great. I'd love that.
What, a bit like Star Tours, where you're not sure what one
Yeah.
you're going to get.
I think it'd be a great idea.
I can't do soaring, it makes me feel sick.
Yeah, we've done it once. We never
We've
did the
done
old
it
one.
once, and it made me feel ill. I haven't done it again.
So Lou, I've got a question for you. That obviously last November you came to the UK and came to London. I was one of the people in the pub that afternoon. If having been to the UK once, what do you think you would add to the UK Pavilion in Epcot, whether that be food, drink, attraction, experience. Is there anything you would like to add in to make it your version of the UK?
Oh, that's a great question.
Pork scratchings are an option.
Oh, if that's an option, you have to add that to the Tea Caddy's shop. Or even if you could go get some like at Rose and Crown would be nice. I really I had a chance to go into the castle before it opened. I didn't realize what I was with Becky and from Mouse Fan Travel and had arranged like a pre-opening tour. I would love to almost see more in and I know the UK Pavilion encompasses a lot of different things, but the royalty and the history and whatnot and was really fascinating to me. I loved. I actually felt when the pub that I went to, I was like, oh, I sort of see where Rose and Crown gets it from. Like, I think it felt pretty authentic to me. The weather wasn't bad. I was expecting rain every day, so it didn't rain every day. So, everybody said I got really lucky with the weather, but everybody was very friendly. I was very, very impressed. I was only there for a few days to speak at a conference, got to tour around a little bit. So I look forward to coming back, like just on holiday and spending more time in the UK.
And it's only a short sort of Eurostar to Paris.
Yeah, it'd be rude not to.
I thought about extending my trip and I could just sort of hop over to Paris, but I needed to come back, so I wasn't able to do it. Now I regret not doing it because, I can't get there, but it's okay.
I have to admit, we've now got DLP annual passes. So it's like, we live in a town where there's a station that takes us directly to DLP.
Wow.
So it's very tempting. Within 2.5 hours we could get there.
It's like sitting on the I-4, 2.5 hours.
But you don't have to worry about driving, so it's nice. You can sort of, relax or nap or.
Especially when you get off, it's Disney the other side.
So Lou, I've got a question for you. You've visited Walt Disney World every decade since the 70s. If you could revisit one of those decades with the parks as they were then, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a great question. The 80s were a very interesting time at Walt Disney World for a variety of reasons, not just because of this a sense of sentimentality and nostalgia that I have for riding 20,000 Leagues and the Skyway and Horizons and World of Motion, but even in terms of the late 80s, and I'll cheat a little bit into sort of the early 90s at places like Hollywood Studios and some of the entertainment offerings there and the parades and the shows and really starting to bring a lot more of interactivity into the guest experience. And there's a lot of weird stuff that, whether it was Ninja Turtles or Goosebumps or Dick Tracy, there's a lot of weird things that came, Muppets on location, Swine and Roses, that came sort of in and out of Hollywood Studios. So I'm going to cheat a little bit, sort of say mid to late 80s, early 90s, 85 to 95. I'm going to sort of I'll take my decade right there.
You can have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Muppets are quite underused in Disney. I think we've spoken to this a few times before. It's like, what did we agree last? That they need to put Muppets Christmas Carol in Epcot.
Oh, in the UK Pavilion. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be. I think as well, going back to that time as well, Lou, I think with Bear in the Big Blue House was part of the parade as well.
Yeah.
And it was just like, when you look back and you're just thinking, that was just, where's Bear gone? Let's get Bear back into the parks. I think I spoke to Claire about there's a petition in the UK just trying to get Bear back on Disney Plus.
Oh, I love Bear.
Start small, Claire. We'll get it back on Disney Plus, and then we'll go from there.
I agree completely. There's nothing like it. It's just like the best show ever.
Yeah.
I think talking about Disney Plus, there's a lot of stuff that Disney can bring back, and they've got a lot of, I know, as with everything with licensing, like we're not getting Frozen 2 until this Friday.
But we're getting it.
Yeah, we're getting it. And there's so much stuff, like we've just watched the Into the Unknown, the making of Frozen, and it's amazing. So much detail and so much stuff that's given me a completely different view of the film and just how sort of Disney have created such an amazing film and all the hard work from everyone at Disney. So, Lou, where for our listeners, where can they find your show?
Yeah, so everything I do on the Disney side of things is at wdwradio.com. Again, podcast comes out every week. Been doing it for just over 15 years. I also do a Facebook live show. I've been doing that every week since 2007, which is Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, which is
very late.
Very late for the UK. I know. We have some friends that
do a bit earlier. Do a bit earlier for us. You should do a UK time.
I'm gonna one of these days I'll do a UK show. We'll start nice and early in the afternoon here and do it. So and then you can also find me. Everything else I sort of do on the business side of things is at loumongello.com, and I'm at Lou Mongello on all social.
Fantastic. I think I would say that I've been a member of the Box People group on Facebook for years, and it is like the friendliest community you have created. Everybody is.
So you've created it. Remember, I just built the clubhouse. You populate it.
But there are so many social media groups about Disney where there's this and that and people talking and just being difficult with each other and difference of opinion. Whereas in the Box People group, everyone is there for the same purpose. They're there to share their experience, to be able to share their story and have fun together and talk about this thing that we all love. And it's a really special place. I it's my go-to place of if having a bad day, let's go and see what's going on.
Well, thank you for saying that. That means a lot to me, and I'm sincere when I say that you and the people in that community make it a place that is not just family friendly and fun and safe, but you're really made to feel that you are at home, and that's a testament to you and everybody that is there. So thank you for that.
No, it's my pleasure. I've had the experience of joining in some of the exchanges as well. So I did the Christmas ornament exchange. I did the letter exchange at the beginning of the COVID stuff. That was amazing. I got a birthday card. It was fantastic. I just think that the people who are part of that are empowered to be the best they can be and share their story and have fun together. So thank you for that. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that's been quite an important thing the past few months, that being in lockdown, we've all sort of looked at Facebook, we've looked at different things, and the Box group has been one of those things that I've always gone to on a daily basis, just something to brighten your day. You get fed up hearing the news, COVID this is happening, everything's on lockdown, but everyone just wants a bit of positivity.
Yeah, I think as well, and I think this is strange because it kind of crosses over your Disney side of things, Lou, and then takes into your business side of stuff as well, because a lot of you, and I know you mentioned you go to conferences, and it's a lot of that sort of keynote speaker sort of putting across your views as how you actually sort of started off and where your life journey, etc. But I think that's what other people are feeding off. It's that, again, coming back to positivity and actually knowing that when you are communicating with people online, that you retain that same value that you live within your own life,
Without a doubt. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without, every single individual person. I'm super cognizant of the fact that every like, every heart, every download, every number is a human being on the other side that's sharing their most valuable commodity, which is their time. And I'm grateful again for that gift of being able to do what I do. And I love the community. I don't even like calling it anything else other than that. And what you guys have built in there is a remarkable thing. So I'm grateful to pay witness to it.
And I would say that you're very charitable because you are willing to be the butt of everyone's jokes. You are, the number of times people have asked for the grease tape, I have lost count. A couple of years ago, I created a Lou Mongello bingo, which I know created some amusement for a couple of weeks while you were doing your live shows. Actually, you're very good humoured about the fun poking that we we direct towards
I know it's all because I know it's all from a good place, as opposed to high school when it came from a bad place and people were just mean to me. But I do, and look, if we can't laugh at ourselves, what kind of example are we setting for other people? This is all supposed to be fun. It's all supposed to be lighthearted. It's supposed to be a diversion from all the bad stuff out there, and again, that hopefully positive, bright light for people.
Thanks, Lou.
Well, that was
Thank you guys
Lou.
so much. You guys are so nice, like everybody else in the UK. You're so nice.
We're all on the best behaviour. Normally, we're all poking fun and laughing at each other, or me.
There's always someone that lowers the tone
Lloyd.
as well.
Lloyd.
Or John. It was John last
It
time.
was.
It was.
No, you guys are great. You have a great rapport and a wonderful dynamic, and you make me feel at home. So thank you for that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
Take care.
Well,
Thank
on the
you.
box.
Cheers.
God save the Queen.
So thank you, Lou, for joining us today. Thank you to also all of our listeners for listening to us waffle on. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at GB Mickey Waffle, and our YouTube channel is The Great British Mickey Waffle. You can also get in touch with us by emailing using themickeywaffle@gmail.com. So if you're listening for the first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any of the fun stuff we have coming up. Waffle on.
Waffle on.
Waffle on.
Waffle on.
God save the Queen.